to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. This is Thursday, May 16th, coming at you in the morning here rather than the night before. We had some internet issues and scheduling issues and whatnot, and a small slate with only so many lines out the day before. So coming at you a little bit later, but still going to be able to cover all 6 games. 4.5 of the 6 have lines at this point, so we should be able to give you some great information. Here's the recap from Tuesday. Of course, we'll see Wednesday's recap on Friday's show. Very ho-hum week so far, really, for us. It seems like if the game is close, we're losing it. If it's not, we're winning it. And so that's a good thing in that those close games will be 50-50 in the long run, and we'll end up on the right side of them soon enough. Again, still feeling pretty good about where things are. The honorable mention starting at that here, kind of highlighting the best of the best. The best model picks there, 7% ROI since we start doing that. So again, pretty pleased with where things are going in those 50-50 games. They will come around for us eventually here. And so again, very, very pleased with where we are. Overall, the model, again, kind of a similar story, but I think we're slowly starting to see, kind of as we hoped, those first 5 picks. Actually, the ROIs continue to grow. Those were kind of both at 3% ROI previously. The full game picks totals were in the negative ROI, negative double-digit ROI. The sides, I think, were at -6. So we can go in the right direction after a really rough start for those full game things. Made some tweaks there. And again, everything's going on the up here. So really pleased with where things are. Again, B grades are the strongest model plays, and the A grades are the ones that I give my stamp of approval to. So when you see the B grade threshold on screen, that's the best the model can give it. And then if it's one of the best ones of those, that's when it gets the A grades. All those A grades are available on Dub Club. You can sign up on the honor roll today. Get the Discord chat, more picks, A grades, play of the day, predictions summarized in multiple ways and words and chart, all sorts of information and projections. And if you're interested in just the play of the day, there's a discounted package available for that. The link in the show description will take you right there to sign up. Some quick reminders here before we get to the games. If you're interested in information about the model and the community, pickswiththeprofessor.com/new is the place to be. Weather is subject to change, of course. Since we're recording in the morning today, that's a little bit less than usual. We are projecting an average game. 1 game, anything can happen. 2 games, 3 games, anything can happen. I tell a story a few times every year. There was 1 year where the Astros lost over 100 games. The Phillies won the World Series, and the Astros swept the 4-game series of Philadelphia that year. Weird things that we see it every year. The Pirates and the Nats specifically have had some success here at the Dodgers this year and last year. And that doesn't mean they're the better team, right? It's just in small sample sizes, anything can happen. And so it's where we think about probability. It's the long-term game here. That's the way the books look at it. That's the way the best sports investors in the world look at it. That's how we want to look at it too. What that means is that 55% winners, they're going to lose 9 times. But if we're betting the right prices, if we can find the right prices, if we have a well-calibrated model, which I think we do, then that means that the 11 wins are going to bring us more money than the 9 losses will. And that's going to lead to slow and steady profits for us, which is what we're looking for. But as always, of course, take what you like and leave the rest. Last but not least, if you could like the show, we would like that. Starting off here, there's one afternoon game, the Yankees and the Twins wrapping up their 4-game series here. Mid-60s for this one. Wind will be blowing out at about 10 miles an hour. Slight chance of rain, but things look to be just fine there. The biggest concern in this game, if you're a Twins fan, is as good as Joe Ryan is, he can get a little bit fly ball heavy, and a fly ball heavy pitcher, what that means is wind blowing out, you might give up a few more home runs. Otherwise, beyond the fly ball, wind blowing out type situation here, Joe Ryan has been fantastic this year. He's a guy we've loved to back. Clark Schmidt, probably not quite as good as that 2.95 ERA, but everything's going in the right direction for him. Underlying metrics look really good, and if he continues to pitch like this, his grade will get better and better. So 2 pitchers that you kind of like here. Offensively, the Twins' offense has been very solid so far. Of course, they're still without one of their top hitters. Yankees' offense grades out really well. We've got this pretty in line with the market. We're a little bit higher on the Twins than the market, but not by enough to jump over the moon for it here. The model says that if we can get the Twins at -110, that would be a B grade. Right now we're seeing -118. So it's kind of a Twins or pass. And it's an over pass as well when you look at the market setting a total of 8. And we're thinking it should be a little bit closer to 9. That wind blowing out, the fly ball tendencies of Joe Ryan, and 2 pretty decent offenses here. Again, Twins are pass, over, pass. A couple different ways you can look at this. We have an official recommendation for this game over on Dub Club. Otherwise, hopefully that information leads you to a pick that you're confident in. Mets and the Phillies, 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Mid-upper 60s. Wind will be blowing in at about 10 miles an hour. Another game with a slight chance of rain. Shouldn't be too big of a deal, though. That wind blowing in is going to create a pretty pitcher-friendly environment in what is otherwise a fairly neutral, maybe slightly hitter-friendly field. Jose Quintana for the Mets, not good. Taijuan Walker for the Phillies, not good. One of these pitchers inspires a lot of confidence. Both of the bullpens behind them are fairly solid. When you look at these two pitchers, I think the biggest difference to me, and I just can't get off of this horse, is that Taijuan Walker, I know he's eating some innings for the Phillies, but Spencer Turnbull's the guy who should be starting in this spot. And that would take this Phillies team just to another level, because right now everything is clicking for them. They look fantastic. The downside for the Phillies, their offense, now that they were a little bit banged up here earlier this week. Realmuto was out for several games. Harper was out for a game. Now that they're as healthy as they're going to be for the time being, they're knocking on the door of a top 10 offense. You can see it's rounding error if they're top 10. Obviously, getting Trey Turner back vaults them into the top 10, and that really solidifies their offense. But even without him, they've looked really good. The issue is that with neither one of these pitchers being very good, I don't really know what's going to happen. And I think this is much closer to a coin toss than the market implies. The market thinks the Phillies win this 58% of the time. And if I had any faith in Taijuan Walker, I would agree with that. If this was Spencer Turnbull, I would agree with that. In fact, if it was Turnbull, I might actually have it higher than that. But given that it's Taijuan Walker and two pitchers that I just don't have a lot of faith in, a Phillies offense that's a little bit left-handed heavy right now, one of the reasons that they miss Trey Turner is that against a left-handed pitcher, they get a little bit of a ding as they're just really relying on left-handed bats right now. Not that Jose Quintana is good, but this game, I would say kind of anything can happen in it. So it's Mets or pass, and your A-grade pick of the day here. We're going to be on the Mets officially here. There's a couple of different ways you can play it, but we are going to roll with plus 135 on the money line there. As you can see, the B-grade threshold is plus 129. You can look at the plus one or the run line market as well if that was something that you are interested in. Either one of those can be appealing. In fact, the plus one market right now I'm looking at, if you were to create that yourself, you'd be looking at about minus 109. So you're switching from the plus odds to the minus odds, but you are getting that push protection on if the road team loses by one, which is an outcome that is always possible. We always like the run line for the road team, whether it's plus 1.5 or minus 1.5. The road team is benefited on the run line. So that's another way you can play it. But our official pick here, plus 135 on the Mets, A-grade pick, closer to a coin toss than the market thinks. I'm not saying the Mets win, but I'm saying if we can win this about 50% of the time, that's going to make for a long-term profitable pick. I love this Phillies team. They look fantastic. The biggest thing, though, with baseball, starting pitching matters. And I love backing Wheeler. I love backing Nola. Both of those guys are on my fantasy team at this point. Nola looked great here earlier this week. Love Christopher Sanchez. Love Ranger Suarez. And I love Spencer Turnbull as well. They have 5 pitchers that I absolutely love. But throwing Taijuan Walker is a little bit of a different story. And so it's a rare opportunity where I think fading the Phillies can make a lot of sense. And that's plus 135, A-grade pick for you this evening. Rays and the Red Sox. 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Mid-50s. Wind will be blowing in. A little bit of rain chance here. Going to be more of a pitcher-friendly night than normal at what can be a hitter-friendly ballpark, but a park that can be highly variable. We've talked about it all season. We talked about it all last season. Ever since we've been doing this show, we can see Fenway Park on average has more runs, but they really come in bunches. You can see a game with 12, 13 runs in it. You can see a game that should have way more than that, where things just don't go that direction and the wonky dimensions and everything doesn't actually give you more runs. So you never really know what to expect there in that park, but a chillier night is going to make it more likely to play pitcher-friendly or more pitcher-friendly than usual, if nothing else. Zach Littell and Cooper Criswell. Littell's been really good in his 8 starts, 3.02 ERA. Underlying metrics align with that. His grade lags behind because of previous season's data. But another pitcher who, if he continues to do what he's doing so far this year, his grade's just going to get better and better. So a guy who you have to like his current form of. Cooper Criswell, same story, only 5 starts, but a 2.10 ERA. The advanced metrics are a little bit less friendly than that, but they're in the 3s. Again, his projection lags because of previous year's data. But two guys that if we consider last year, year before that, etc., Coming in, you have to balance that, considering that, keeping everything in full perspective. The model just says our average, but if you just look at this year's data and you like their current form, they actually both grade out better than this. And so it's something to keep in mind when we get to the total projection here in just a minute. Bullpen wise, the Red Sox bullpen's pretty solid. The Rays isn't. That's the big difference between these two teams. The Rays offense, as I mentioned for some time now, they've struggled so far early. There's really not a lot of reason to be overly concerned. We are dinging them for where we thought they would be, but they'll be okay. And of course, the Red Sox offense, both of these teams right now seem fairly respectable. Biggest difference is the bullpen and the home field advantage. That's why we've got the Red Sox winning this 54% of the time, as opposed to the market's 51% of the time. It's Red Sox or pass, and it's over or pass. Here's the kind of condition on the over, as I mentioned at the start of this game discussion. Both these pitchers have pitched much better than their grade, and if you were to completely overreact, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, if there's a reason for either one of these two pitchers, pitching changes, style changes, things that we might not even know about, or things that you might know of if you do enough extensive research, who knows, for these two pitchers. And if both of them are able to pitch at the current form that they've been at this season, that projected total could easily drop into the mid-8s. And so there might be less of an overedge there than indicated. And both offenses can definitely struggle at times too. So the over can be a little bit of a tentative pick just based off how you feel about that. Now, again, the model's doing its best job to balance what we have this year and previous seasons. There's been plenty of pitchers, we're already starting to see them, who've started off really, really hot, here in these 7 starts or 6 starts or whatever, and then start to fall apart because, again, we shouldn't really overreact to that. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure type situation. By keeping everything in perspective and saying we can't just look at this year's data, the model says these two starting pitchers are merely average and expects a few more runs. But the way they're currently pitching now, I can see why the total maybe should be a little bit lower than the model is assigning it. But given Red Sox or pass, we are right at the doorstep of that B grade play there. It's hard to like this Rays team. They have won a handful of games, but they definitely can be pretty hit or miss. So in a game that the market says is a coin toss, I would agree with that, except for, again, the games in Boston and the Red Sox relievers make me feel a little bit more comfortable than the Rays relievers. So Red Sox or pass, over or pass for that one. Pirates and the Cubs, mid-60s, slight breeze out, but it looks like it'll be 5 miles an hour, maybe even less. And so with very little wind factor here, this park will play pretty normal. No total yet out on this one as of early this morning. Because, again, the books like to wait as close as we can get to first pitch to know about the weather, because the weather matters more at Wrigley Field than any other park in the country. Jared Jones and Justin Steele. Jones has been fantastic as a young kid for the Pirates. If you're a Pirates fan, you have to love what you've seen from him. Grade just going in the right direction. Underlying metrics solid. Everything good, good, good. Justin Steele, only 3 starts. He's struggled overall, but it's 13 innings, and he's been very good in last year. So not really overly concerned. Not going to make too much about it. I still think Steele's the better pitcher because we can't just, freak out over 13 innings this season and ignore the 100 and whatever that he pitched last season. But another situation where 2 pitchers that you kind of have to like. There's really no warts I can talk about for either one of these guys that makes me think that we should fade either one of them. The Pirates have a bullpen edge. The Cubs have an offensive edge. Game's in Chicago, so the Cubs should be favored here. Question is by how much? We've got it at 57%. The market's got it at 55%. That puts us at a Cubs or pass situation. But with this market not being fully formed right now, it's hard to talk too much more about it at the moment. A's and the Astros, mid to upper 70s. I assume they're going to close the roof in Houston. That's what they do in these situations, but they could open it up if they wanted. Joey Estes and Christian Javier. Estes looked really good in his first start, and a guy that we backed because the price was just outrageous on him. They were treating him as if he was a double-A pitcher, and he's not good, but he's not completely terrible either. He looked very respectable in his first start. Obviously, he still projects worse than that because we aren't going to overreact to one start. Christian Javier, on the other hand, yikes. Thinking we'd have a bounce back season from him, knew last year that things weren't going to go well, that he'd thrown too many innings from the season before, had the whole World Baseball Classic thing, his velocity was down. We kind of knew there would be issues last year, expected a bit of a bounce back this year, but instead he's had some injury problems. This last start he comes back, just doesn't look ready. He didn't look great in his minor league rehab starts. So just some big questions here. I do think he will figure it out. The question is when. If he isn't able to figure it out, tonight against this A's team that's not a very good offensive team, that doesn't bode well. So one I have my eye on here to see if he can get it rolling and find that form. And the Astros probably tried to rush him back a little bit too soon because their starting pitching is so injured and so questionable in the back end right now. Hunter Brown, who's been a little bit of a disappointment, and again all the injuries. So they're trying to get him back rolling. When is he going to find it? That's the big question. Underlying metrics this season are not very good, partially from that last start. Was a little bit concerned from before that because, again, I expected to bounce back, but it hadn't gone great so far. It wasn't as bad as that last start. So, again, just a very mixed bag on Javier. 2 subpar pitchers, 2 solid bullpens. I've been saying it for weeks. This Astros bullpen should be fine. If you listen to me, you've done well. We've done great with this Astros team. We've hated them for a while, did great. We've backed them for a while here lately, and that's done great. And this Astros bullpen, as I've been preaching, would be fine. That's why we look at the underlying metrics. There's a reason I'm doing this. There's a reason that I've been preaching this. I'm an expert in this field. I've spent a lot of time on it, looking at it. And that doesn't mean the Astros bullpen is going to be good every night. I am a little bit concerned about Ryan Presley, just watching him spike fastballs 55 feet, rather than getting it at least to the 60 feet 6 inches to home plate. But in general, these underlying metrics for Astros bullpen painted a much stronger picture, and you've seen it recently. They've continued to hold leads of late. When Blanco's ejected the other day, they had 8 innings, I think, of relief, 7 innings of relief, whatever it was. Only 1 run allowed, and that was, of course, Presley. And so, again, this Astros bullpen will be just fine. This Hayes bullpen's been fantastic all season. So 2 good bullpens. The biggest question on the runs aspect is, what are we going to get from either one of these starting pitchers? Of course, this Astros offense is still good, especially if Bergman's coming around. We are in line with the model, with the market on this one. We've got the Astros winning 64% of the time. The market says 65% of the time. Not really enough of an edge anywhere to back either side. It's kind of an overpass situation. The biggest question is how you feel about Christian Javier and if he's going to be able to figure it out. How you feel about this Astros bullpen. Again, I've been preaching that they'll be fine. They look pretty solid at this point. They got a little bit of a reset here after Fromber pitched so deep into Wednesday night's game. So an overpass situation. The A's might be a little bit enticing, but if need the odds to get higher on them before taking a chance. But again, fading Christian Javier in one way or the other at this point isn't the craziest thing. I kind of need him to prove he's able to find it before I back him in any way, shape, or form. And then wrapping us up here, Reds and the Dodgers. No line on this one as of yet. Nick Martinez is going to pitch in some way, shape, or form. We're not sure if he's going to actually start or if there'll be an opener, but it's been reported that he will be a bulk pitcher on this. A guy who I wasn't very high on in previous seasons, thought his metrics weren't as good as his ERA. His ERA was deflated because of all the time he's pitching in San Diego, which is, of course, a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. This year, I'm actually going to say the opposite. It's only been 33 innings, but his 4.86 ERA is higher than his xFIP by almost about a half a run, higher than his FIP by almost 2 runs. I actually think he's been better than he's looked so far this season. So kind of a guy who's, as we see with most guys, when they look great and look terrible, right? They're probably not quite as extreme as it looks. They're probably not quite as good as they look at their best. I would say he's not as good as he looked at times for the Padres, but not as bad as his worst. And he's looked a little bit shaky at times here for the Reds, somewhere in between that. Very average pitcher. Of course, unfortunately for him, average pitchers tend to struggle against this Dodgers team that is insanely good. We faded the Dodgers both in the first 5 of the full game against Logan Webb last night. That worked out really well for us. That was Logan Webb at home, who's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And at home, even better. But Tyler Glasnow, rounding error away from the best active pitcher in starting baseball. Those rankings that you see there, again, are only active pitchers. So no DeGrom, no Strider, no a lot of guys who are hurt right now. But it's a pretty tight race between Skubal, Glasnow, and Zach Wheeler. Rounding error race. They're one of the best pitchers in baseball, the best offense in baseball for the Dodgers. The Dodgers bullpen, again, the model's not a huge fan of it with Evan Phillips out, but it shouldn't really matter because this is a massive mismatch. We've got the Dodgers winning this 3 out of 4 times at the price be minus 293. I've seen some books have a number on this, kind of just saying bullpen game for the Reds. Nick Martinez not actually caring who starts, and it's pretty in line. Personally, it's Dodgers or pass. A lot of you are going to run to the run line. I'm not saying the run line's a good play or a bad play. Again, just remember to think about this in probabilities. What's the probability the Dodgers win by multiple runs? It's hard to do that as a home team. The Dodgers have been great at winning by multiple runs in years past. They haven't been as much this year. I think those numbers from the previous years were a little bit lucky because some of that didn't really seem sustainable. But they are a really good team. The probability that they cover the run line, we have that available for everyone on Dub Club have that available for every single game. And so you can look at that, see the probability, the implied price, and the B grade threshold. All of that is available if you're interested on Dub Club. My hunch is the price on that's going to be really high because that's what everyone's going to want to be doing. That doesn't mean it hits, but it does mean that at some point we just have to be careful applying high prices on things that don't hit at a good probability, because that's how we lead to long-term losses. So just be keeping that in mind. But again, if you're looking for more metrics, ways to make sure that you're playing good prices, all of that information available for everyone over on Dub Club, and the link in the show description right there at the very top will take you there to get all that information. As always, thank you so much for watching. We wish you the best of luck. We'll be back soon with the show for Friday's games. But until we see you again, please remember that you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.